they found from the very beginning 3 sessions. First of all, review in aware state. Second of all, listening to the words in deep relaxation. Third of all, review in an aware state again. They found that from the very first session, they were getting 98% retention. In that, in testing at the end of each session, they were remembering 98% of what they learned. They conducted this experiment for 6 weeks, and every single student in the class got up to a 98% retention rate with no experience in the language at all. Now, before they disbanded this experiment in '66, he called for volunteers and got 15 more. 15 of these students volunteered, and they said, would it be possible to learn 500 words in one day? Well, they came in on a Saturday. They worked all day, because nobody in recorded history had ever learned 500 words in a day. And at the end of the day, they tested out at 98% retention on 500 words. Now, an interesting point is that many of these people were suffering nervous disorders. As a matter of fact, 40% of them were drawn from the registers of psychologists and psychiatrists. And after this 6-week learning period, learning 150 words a day, almost every one of them was completely better. That there was no stress in this type of learning, that it was very, very relaxing, that they found that it cleared their minds and they felt wonderful afterwards, as opposed to our current way of learning, which is so stressful and so tense and so competitive. They found that after this 500 words, at the end of the day, everybody felt great. There was no stress, no fatigue, nothing. Well, he said, let's see if it's possible to increase this before we disband the experiment, and he called back 12 of the students, the best learners. 2 weeks later, they got together to see if they could learn 1,000 words in one day. 1,000 brand new words in one day. The result of it was that at the end of the day, they were able to learn the 1,000 words and test out at 98%. Interesting, later on, about 6 months later, they brought these students all back to see how much of the language they had retained with no opportunity to read in it, no opportunity to speak it. They found that they tested out at 69% recall without any review, and with one review, the entire class was back up to 98%. In other words, this method of music with deep relaxation, dropping into alpha theta and activating both brains, had led to a dramatic increase in learning ability. Now, in 1974, Lozanov, under a controlled experiment, got the rate up to 1,800 words in one day, with 98% retention. In 1979, in a special experiment with selected students, Lozanov got the rate up to 3,000 words in one day. In other words, by activating the brain and with still 98% retention. Now, this is a phenomenal thing. It's almost an unheard of thing to believe, but what Lozanov has found is that the learning capacity of the brain is infinite. That the capacity of your brain to learn and to take in information. For example, if you speak English well, you probably speak and use about 1,200 to 2,000 words in the course of your day-to-day life. All you need is 2,000 words to be functionally fluent in any language. The average English-speaking person uses less than 1,200 words. As a matter of fact, some people, and especially as you go down the educational ladder, use sometimes less than 500 words in their entire language. But 2,000 words will enable you to read any newspaper, any magazine, watch any program, radio, television, except something of a technical nature. What Lozanov proved was that it's possible for a person to learn one language per day, permanently. Now, this learning technology is beginning to change the way that we learn. It's beginning to revolutionize all of our understandings about language. Lozanov has also developed many other techniques and understandings. He found that gentle classical music is a critical part of this learning. That Baroque music, with 60-beat Baroque, that slows down the heart rate and slows down the brainwave activity rate so that the body and the mind get into sync with the music and the incoming information, is critical. That you can learn technical subjects, you can learn medicine, philosophy, psychology. I have taken extended courses now in accelerated or optimal learning to learn these methodologies, and what I have found is that you can learn, even without any of the science or technology, you can learn things very, very rapidly if you'll do 2 or 3 things. Here are the keys to speeding up the way that you learn. Number 1 is define what it is you want to learn and need to learn in order to be more successful and more effective. You cannot learn something that you're not interested in. You cannot learn something that does not hold your attention. You cannot learn something that is boring. So make sure that what you're studying is important to you. So number 1 is to define it. And when you begin to study, define your purpose. Why are you learning this subject? think it through, read it through, study it, and only study things with an aim in mind. Remember, you have to have a goal. Number 2 is you must have an intense desire to learn. You must have a desire. In other words, you cannot learn because somebody else wants you to learn. Number 3 is always study, when you can, with classical music. Gentle classical music with no words. Gentle classical music of any kind, especially music from the classical period of Mozart, Bach, Brahms, Dvorak, Beethoven, and Stravinsky, for instance. These composers have a classical 60-beat Baroque backbeat within their music. And if you play with classical music or even environmental sounds like the sounds of waves or the oceans, white music as it's called, if you have that in the background, it relaxes the brain, it opens the left and the right hemisphere, and it allows information to come in through the left brain and be internalized into the right brain where it is stored in the seat of memory. So what you want to do is, through music, you want to relax the corpus callosum, relax the brain so that information can flow in through the left brain and into the right. A 4th key point is spaced repetition. Spaced repetition is important. Now, some people say, why is it, or how is it that I can give a seminar like this all day without notes? And I sometimes do day after day after day of seminars without notes. I must have a great memory. I don't have a great memory. I just study all the time, and I use spaced repetition, and I review it over and over again. There's another thing, too, by the way, is that the more you learn, the more you learn. When you start to study, remember that it takes practice to learn how to learn. It takes practice, practice, practice. Is that the more you practice learning how to learn, the more likely it is that you'll learn. The first few days when you're studying a new subject, you'll find it takes tremendous effort. Now, here's another important point, and that is variety. Variety of stimulation is critical. The number of different ways that you stimulate your mind, different books, different magazines, plays, different exposures to different conversations, different subjects, and so on. If you bombard your mind continuously with stimuli that challenges your mind, you will find that you'll develop the capacity to learn and remember more. And number 7 is, remember this, it's called attention span, is the time when you learn the most is at the beginning of a period of study and at the end of a period of study. What does this tell you? It tells you that instead of studying or reading for a long period of time like this, say 2 or 3 hours, what you do is break it up and take several breaks so that you have a series of breaks. And you'll always remember what you learn at the beginning of the break, at the beginning of the period, at the end of the period, the beginning and end. So the more breaks that you can take, the more variety that you can put into your studying, the faster you'll learn. The key to remember this is that everything that you are or ever will become is going to be as a result of the information you take into your mind. The practical, usable information that you can take and use to bring about some kind of improvement in the world around you. If you want to earn more, you have to learn more. If you want to be happier, you have to learn more. If you want to realize your full potential as a human being, you have to learn more, which means read, study, and learn how to learn. And if you'll do that, you'll be amazed at how much of your mental potential you can release.
Session 14, Progressive Relaxation with Music.
The work of Georgy Lazanov in establishing the sciences of suggestology and suggestopedia, which is the application of the power of suggestion to the process of learning, also have applications with regard to you and I in terms of reprogramming our subconscious mind. You see, if we can learn a subject like French or English, if we can learn history or mathematics, if we can learn something very, very fast as a result of deep relaxation with music in a systematic, organized process, can't we also learn new belief systems? Can't we also learn new ideas, concepts, characteristics, qualities? Can we develop confidence, courage, the ability to earn more money, the ability to be better parents, better bosses, and so on, using the same techniques? Yes, we can. Now, over the years and over the centuries, over all the course of mankind, great mystics, great leaders, great religious teachers, great philosophers and thinkers have found that by relaxing deeply, even without music, just relaxing deeply and meditating or dwelling on particular thoughts or ideas, whether it's a quality or a mantra or something else, deep relaxation and meditation on a particular thought enables us to internalize the thought.